Jonathan, this one is intense and it's freaky and it's a heart racer. It's everything you want, I think, in a movie. Is that what drew you to be a part of the abandoned?
Tell me how you really feel. Uh, very, very much so. No, I think the script was the initial hook that drew us all in of just for a genre that we've seen and in a genre that I love. It was a very unique take and was a wild ride even on the page. And half the challenge came, the biggest challenge came to putting it on its feet and actually bringing that to life. And it seemed like a challenge we were all up for.
I was like, Dwayne, this is nuts.
No, he's amazing. He has a twisted imagination, but amazing writer.
No comment. How did they originally then describe Miles to you?
um, he was originally described to me as a kind of like a broken soul that has a lot of life going in on under the surface that remains to be seen, and is someone that essentially joined the service because he wanted his life to be in the hands and in the control of someone else. And
Mm-hmm.
while that's not in any way how I am as a person, there's something there that I could sink my teeth into and a lot to play with, and a lot that kind of blossomed out of that. That was a very unique and complex character for a film of this genre that isn't just two dimensional and surface. And here's a guy in a very unique scenario that needs to get through it.
I mean, it's kind of like voice acting in a way as well, because you're in this little cubic space, and then Damsey's ethereal, supposedly though, nearby at the same
Right.
time. Was that what was the ultimate challenge for you?
Well, so Tamara Perry, who plays Damsey, was actually on set for the whole shoot. Uh,
Oh,
we're both very lucky for that. And so we had a little setup for her just off screen, and we were never more than about 10 feet away from each other, which just really allowed the performances to be, yeah, as you would with the person in the room, and having that energy and connectivity, actor to actor, without having to kind of take your own take on your half of the scene and hope that it's something they can work with when they later on down the road record their side.
right.
I don't think the film would have been nearly what it turned out to be without that. It was a true gift.
There's such intensity and incredibility to every single scene. You're writing on walls, you're being torn apart physically. That one was a curious one for me. What was it like for you filming that? Your dog tags are going one way, your body's being torn separate. Are you in a harness or something and they're physically pulling you that way to give you that emotion?
Yeah, I was in a harness with pick points on my hands and legs, and that in the middle of shooting, we stopped for 3 days of stunts, and I didn't have a stunt double, because it would be near impossible to cheat a lot of this
Right?
with a stunt double. And there were 3 very long, very hard days of stunts that, on top of an already taxing shoot, nearly took me to my limit. And that was the third day of stunts where I think we went through 20 takes plus of that uh, particular shot. That there's only so much your body can go through. At a certain point, faking the pain becomes real pain, and that definitely was the case. At a certain point, it was just real pain.
Oh my goodness. Is there a particular scene then that you're, well, maybe that one I should say is the one you're most proud of because you physically survived it, let alone put in the work while you're being torn apart? Truly. Is there maybe one that challenged you the most mentally? You're trying to figure out this thing and there's pieces to the puzzle. I think they're going to make a meme out of you at some point with like Julia Roberts, where she's trying to figure out these things and they've got the different physics
With
and
the
things like
big
that.
spike,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think they're going to do that with you in the wall at some point.
One can only hope. Um, I would say probably like my biggest fear in approaching this. But I mean, I've done a lot of stunts in my career, but never been the only stunt player, and so much of this hung on selling the stunt that I think every stunt setup, I was just sitting there going, I hope this comes across. And I was throwing, asides to the director, Jason Sutherland, like, is this good? Are you feeling it? Does this feel believable? And he goes, you look like you're in pain. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about what's going on. Just don't get hurt, please, because we still have to finish shooting the rest of this movie. So I think all of those together, and some of the stunts were really fun, but we had four different versions of the set. We had one that kind of teeter tottered, that was about 15 feet tall on each side. We had a hamster wheel that spun, big old set that the walls would collapse in, and some other ones. And so, as much as it was terrifying and taxing, and there's always a certain degree of fun in it, even when you're smiling through the tears.
How did you shake off a long day of being at like 100% adrenaline all day long?
Because it was such a short shoot, and because we shot chronologically, and because there was zero room for error, I kind of just lived in character the entire time. And because of that, I think each day just kind of fueled the next. Using that as another building block to kind of like stick it within me and go, okay, now that happened, use that, um, and just kind of try to keep the reality alive rather than. I lived a very quiet life while we were shooting that movie when we weren't on set. It was monkish at best and maybe a little bizarre for some of the people on set, but I think ultimately necessary. If we had more time, I don't know if it would have been, but because of the short timeline, I think it almost demanded it.
I mean, you're solely the focus of all of these scenes too. There, we talked about Tamara being there, but she's not, next to you in these moments. So everything, the focus is on you. So your back is carrying basically 99% of this movie. It must be physically, mentally taxing, but you did an exceptional job with this movie. You never know
Oh,
1 minute from the next if this is real, if this is his mind, if this is aliens, if this is a combat like some sort of person from a different war zone testing you physically, mentally, all of these things. You don't know if Damsey is real. You don't know if Damsey is a good person, and she's testing you at this point because you're trying to figure it all out. You just did an exceptional work with this film. There's one moment to the next, you don't know what's happening. Is that what you think is going to make this such a fast fan favorite, sort of sci-fi, maybe thriller? I don't even know how to categorize this at this moment. Is it a
well,
war film?
first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. And I think we're calling it a contained psychological sci-fi thriller. Um, yeah, I mean that's part of what drew me to the project in the first place. Was I love this genre. I love person in a box films, everything from Buried to Lock and beyond. And I hadn't seen or read a film like this before, and something that really does a really good job of navigating the genre stereotypes that make us all roll our eyes. When a film like almost does it and is almost there, but then does something that you're like, oh, come on, really? Um, and I think in a lot of ways it navigates that in a really nice and refreshing way. Um, I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. I mean, there's not how can you even truly talk about what will draw people
Right.
in, because you kind of have to see this one to figure out all the pieces, or at least try to. I maybe I'll create the gif of you doing that at this point because I'm so
And
fascinated.
then we can just send it back and forth to
That's
one
right.
another.
So it'll be a career highlight. Be out in the ether with this wonderful film.
Thank you so much.